Hey, what's up, guys? Chris Martinez here, host of Operation Agency Freedom, the number one podcast in the world, absolutely blowing Joe Rogan's podcast out of the water. Very excited for you guys to join me today. I'm going to talk about something very, very sensitive, and it might be something that you guys haven't thought about, but it's been weighing on my mind for a very long time. I got to talk about it. You know, I meet with many, many agency owners every single week. I've met at least 1,000 of them over the past, 10 years. I've never heard anybody talk about mental health in the agency space. And if there's ever a crisis that we have in the United States in general, it's mental health. So that's what I'm going to talk about today on the episode. So if you're listening to this and you've been struggling with things like depression or not feeling right in the head, or you feel like there's something that's holding you back and you haven't been able to identify it, pay attention. I am not perfect by any stretch, but I have made a conscious effort to work on my own mental health. And I can say with 100% certainty that that is what's helped me to grow my business. So listen to the episode, pay attention, and at the end, reach out if you have any questions. And of course, go to the website, read the show notes. And if there's a link that I mention or anything like that, definitely click on it. And then, of course, subscribe. So then you can get more exciting episodes like this one. So with that being said, let's head over and we're going to talk about some fun mental health stuff. All right, guys, welcome back. So this is a very sensitive topic, and I've been kind of holding back talking about this for quite some time. I haven't really heard too many other people talk about mental health in the agency space, but it's really, really important. And it's made such a big impact on my life when I started to recognize that my mental health was directly proportional to my ability to grow my agency. I really started to focus on it, and it's made a massive difference, both for me personally and the agency at Dude as well. I'm going to start off by throwing out some statistics. These are things that people don't talk about for some reason. I don't understand why, because all of us, we have struggled emotionally, mentally. Human beings are just emotional creatures in general. And while the stigma of things like going to a therapist or going to a psychiatrist, getting medication for mental health issues, while that stigma, I think, has decreased over the last 10 to 15 years, it's still not something that's very publicly talked about, and it's definitely not talked about in the agency industry. Did a lot of research on this when I was actually writing my last book, and we have a massive mental health problem in the United States. And why you think that is, or whether you agree with me or not, go ahead. But the fact of the matter is that we have 16% of the population in the United States, and I can't speak for other countries. I don't know if it's similar. It probably is. But 16% of the United States has either schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or some major personality disorder like obsessive compulsive, narcissism. I think there's 8 of them. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. And while there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a mental disorder like this, mental health disorder like this, to me, it's the same as having a physical disorder. It's something that you're born with, not necessarily anything that's your fault, but at the same time, it is your responsibility to treat it. And that's where the problems come in is, depending on who you ask, anywhere from half of that 16% is untreated. So let's think about that. Like if you have a room of 50 people, 8 of those people have either schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or any of the 8 major personality disorders. And in case you're wondering, depression is actually not one of those personality disorders. So depression doesn't count. If you throw in depression, that number is a lot higher. But in general, so if you walk into any room, 8 of those folks, 50 people, 8 of those folks have one of those mental health issues. 4 of those people are not treating it. And that's where the problems can come in, is not treating or actually not even being diagnosed with these problems. And, as I said in the intro, I've met a lot of agency owners and I've seen a lot of mental health problems. I don't know if it's the nature of our industry because, and this is very stereotypical, but there's a lot of like artists, and artists are kind of known for being a little kooky or, something else. I do know that in terms of our healthcare system in the United States, treatment can be very, very expensive. And if you don't have the right insurance or you don't have the money, it can be very expensive to get the help that you need. Like therapists can run anywhere. I mean, on the cheap end, like $60 an hour, $50 an hour, but anywhere from $100 to $300 an hour, typically, plus the medication. And if you don't make good money or your family isn't there to support you financially, then it can be out of your financial means to get the treatment that you need. So that's the problem, that I think that we're experiencing in the United States specifically, and it's probably similar in other parts of the world. I do, think that in other areas where they have national health care, where people are able to get treatment a lot more affordably, they probably have lower rates of this. But in general, we have this looming cloud of mental health problems in the United States. And, I think we can trace a lot of our societal problems in the United States back to that mental health problem as well. That's just my personal opinion. So with that being said, how does this impact running an agency? Because that's why you guys listen to me. That's why you follow my podcast and attend our events, is you want to learn how to be more effective at running the agency, all the non-sexy stuff. Well, this is about as non-sexy as it gets. I'll tell you from my experiences and my perspective, how focusing on my own mental health has really helped me grow my business. You've probably heard me say that the business is a reflection of you. And I don't just mean that in terms of, your ability to lead or your organization as a business person. I take it even deeper than that. It's a reflection of you and your ability to manage your emotions and what's going on in between your ears. If you can't manage what's going on in your own head, and you can't reconcile the thoughts that are being processed by your brain, then that is definitely going to be reflected in the agency. And most likely the business is going to suffer, and your team members around you are going to have to suffer along with it. I'll tell you some stories, just to kind of give you something to relate to and hopefully destigmatize the ideas of dealing with your mental health as an agency owner. So my dad died of cancer in 2007. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Well, actually, he was diagnosed with liver cancer. It was right around December 8th or December 9th, 2006. It was a shock because he was a healthy guy. We didn't think that anything like that would happen. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. He played tennis like every single day. So, he got diagnosed, and originally it was liver cancer. They thought it was liver cancer. A couple of weeks later, they did an endoscopy and they discovered that it was actually pancreatic cancer. It had spread to the liver, which is why it originally showed up as liver cancer. So for those of you that don't know anything about pancreatic cancer, it's one of the worst cancers you can get. And my dad's cancer was like one of the fastest spreading cancers that they'd ever seen. He was diagnosed around December 8th or 9th, and he died on January 10th, 2007. That really rocked me to the core, and I didn't know how to deal with the grief. And as a man, as a guy, and especially as a guy who played a lot of sports, you're kind of taught to just suck it up, just take those emotions, shove it down, pretend like none of that stuff happened, and just deal with it, like the stereotypical be a man. And I tried that originally. And I was there in the room when he took his last breath. And I had a lot of, I guess, for lack of a better word, trauma around that experience. And I remember vividly seeing him take his last breath. I'll be very descriptive here. He was laying in his hospital bed that I had set up in the living room of his condo because he was going home for hospice, because obviously we knew that, the end was coming very quickly. It's just after midnight, January 10th, 2007. And so my stepmother is on his left side, basically laying in the bed with him. My brother is to the right, and I'm sitting at the bottom of the bed with my hand on his foot. And I vividly remember looking at his face as his breath started to slow. And it looked like somebody reached into his chest and squeezed his heart. He made a funny face as if he was, he'd gotten punched or something like it. It was a wincing pain. And then that was it, and he was gone. After that, I replayed that memory in my brain over and over and over. I couldn't get it out of my head for years. That was one of those things where I was trying to suck it up. I was trying to be a man, and I just couldn't do it. And it got to the point where I was just angry all the time. And anybody that would piss me off, I was just constantly looking for a fight. I would, throw down the drop of a hat at anything. I would try and, fight somebody. And of course that had negative repercussions on relationships that I had with friends. And essentially at the end of 2 years of trying to deal with it the Chris's way, trying to man up, I was at the point where I didn't want to be on this planet anymore. And so I was literally like considering killing myself. And I had this moment where I was like, you know what, that's not what my dad would want for me. And I needed to find help. And so I went out and I scoured through this giant book that my insurance provider at the time gave me. And I found a therapist. I just literally went line by line, calling. Nobody answered. So then I was like leaving messages. And this gal named Susan in Manhattan Beach called me back, and I started going to therapy with her. And I credit her with saving my life. If it wasn't for her, I don't think I would be alive today. And I learned a lot of valuable things about my mental health, about how to deal with emotions, and about how, my response to adversity and negative things that happen, that is something that I can control. I can't control what happens to me, but I can control how I respond. And that might be, common sense to you guys. But for me, and the way that I grew up and the experiences that I had, that was absolutely revolutionary for me. And of course, we dove into a lot of other stuff, a lot of other horrible shit that I had to deal with when I was younger. I started to pick up what I call like these tools. Susan would give me these tools that I could use to deal with different difficult situations. And, so that was very life-changing for me. And I definitely wouldn't have started this business, and I wouldn't have been able to manage this business the way that I do now had I not gotten those tools, those mental health tools from Susan. So this is around 2009 when I started going to her. I think I stopped seeing her around 2010. And so then fast forward, I started I started my agency actually in 2012. That grew. And then I started Dude in 2017. And I never forgot about Susan. I would actually reach out to her once a year and I would say, hey, thank you. Just want to let you know that I haven't forgotten about all that you did for me, so on and so forth. And I referred her quite a lot of people. For some reason, after I started telling these stories, other guys started coming out of the woodworks and asking me questions and asking me for a referral to Susan. Anyways, 2018, the business is starting to take off. New challenges start to come up. 2019, I'm dating my now current wife. And I remember I went to an event that Russ Perry from Design Pickle was hosting. And, Russ and I have become friends since then. And he talks about this concept called Core 4. And Russ didn't create it. This other guy named Garrett White created it. And one of the pillars of Core 4, and he doesn't call it this, but it's essentially this concept of taking care of your mental health. Every day you do 2 things to take care of your mental health. I heard it, but I didn't actually start to do it until about 6 months later. And ultimately, I thought I was doing it, but then I went back to another event that Russ was hosting and I recognized, or I shouldn't better say, they basically slapped me in the face and said, hey, no, you're not doing it, idiot. And that was why I wasn't experiencing any progress in the business. And ultimately, my life hadn't gotten that much better like they said it would. And it wasn't them, it was me. I was being stubborn and stupid. And I wasn't doing the mental health things that I needed to be doing. So you're probably wondering, what are those 2 things that they say you need to do? So it was, the first one was meditation and the other one was journaling. Now, you might be listening to this and you might be thinking like, there's no fucking way I'm going to do this. And that's exactly what I said. I was like, there's no fucking way I'm going to do this. Meditation is stupid. It's for hippies. It's not my thing. I can't just sit there and not think and just blah, 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 blah. That was my mindset for 6 months after learning this. But then after, I went back and I was like, what do I have to lose? I might as well give this a shot for a couple months and just see what happens. And the crazy thing is that it worked. So I started out doing like 5 minutes of meditation and I use this app called Headspace. I tried other things, there's other ones. I can't remember the names of them. I had a free month trial, I think, of Headspace. I started out doing 5 minutes and I was like, actually, this is not that bad. So then I think I went to 7 minutes or maybe 10 minutes. Little by little, I got more easy for me to do the meditation. And then the journaling, I use this thing called the 5-minute daily journal or something like that. Or it's like 5-minute gratitude journal. And that made it super easy. And, I know some people like to type. I personally have found that I have to write it down. And what's great about this journal is that it gives you prompts and you literally write in every day. So for example, you write in 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things that you want to accomplish that would make it a great day. You write in your affirmations, which I also hated for a long time. Little by little, I started to get that and I got the consistency and I started to take care of my mental health. And guess what? Things started to turn around. the business started to turn around too. I started to recognize deficiencies that I had as a leader, and I started to actively try and improve those things. And the best part of that is that I was in a mental state where I could actually, or I feel like I could better utilize my brain power to being a better leader in the business. And of course, adversity came through like crazy in 2020. And if I hadn't had that foundation of Core 4, but specifically that mental health, the daily mental health strengthening or checkup or however you want to call it, if I didn't have that, then I don't think that the business would have survived either. So I was very fortunate in that sense that I came upon that knowledge at the right time, and it wasn't, too late. After time went by, I added in another layer. I started going back to therapy, and I think I was doing it a couple times a month, and then I took time off. And then now my commitment is I go in at least once a month. So it's the end of March right now, or a week from the end of March. It's March 24th when I'm recording this. So I'm going back a week from today. I have a therapist here in Mexico that I go see, and we just talk about whatever. I think actually before we were planning before we had the wedding, I was going a little bit more frequently because there was just so many things going on in my head. Obviously the business is going gangbusters, but planning the wedding and then kind of the stress from that, I had to go a bit more just to kind of get stuff out and get ideas and pick up new tools, like get more tools that I can add to my tool belt so that I could deal with, these crazy situations that come up. And so, here's the moral of the story. If you're an agency owner, you certainly are dealing with difficult situations. And oftentimes, and I hate to, make you feel bad, but oftentimes these situations that you're going through, not many people in your circle have ever experienced that, and they'll never understand specifically what it is that you're going through. And in some sense, nobody will truly understand what you're going through. But, I think if you hang around a lot of other agency owners, a lot of them will get, 80, 90, 95% of what you're going through. And that can help as well. But there's no substitute for taking care of your own mental health, whether that be doing like what I mentioned, the meditation and the journaling, or going to a therapist and talking, about it with somebody. And there's other methods for therapy. I personally believe that therapy is a great way to do it. But if you want to go to church or you talk to your pastor or whatever it is, hopefully they give you unbiased advice. But talking to a trained professional is one of the best things that I've ever done. And I think it could be very helpful for you, especially if you're struggling with things like your own mental health. Let's just clarify, you don't have to have something like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or one of those personality disorders to take care of your mental health. This is something that every single person needs to do. And especially every agency owner, CEO, entrepreneur. It's very, very important. Remember what I said, the business is a reflection of you. The business is a reflection of what's going on in between your ears. It's a reflection of what's going on in your head. And you have a responsibility to your company and to your people and to your customers to take care of your mind, to take care of your mental health. I'm going to say that again because it's so unbelievably important. You have a responsibility to take care of your mental health. Whatever way you do that, it is your responsibility. So with that being said, I'm going to get out of here. If you have questions, if you want a referral to a therapist, if you want to learn more about specifically what I've done and what I continually do to take care of my own mental health, then feel free to reach out to me, chris@dudeagency.io. That's my email. I don't have an assistant that looks at it. Just email me directly. Please don't add me to any spam list though. But yeah, just reach out to me if that's something that you want to talk one-on-one about or just get an answer. I'm more than happy to help you with that, especially the guys out there. Don't think that you're too tough to go see a therapist. And with that being said, I hope that this serious conversation opened your eyes a little bit about something else that is super, super important to helping you scale your agency. And, it doesn't have anything to do with spreadsheets. It doesn't have anything to do with operations or finances or HR. It has to do with you as a leader. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to me if you could share it with your friends, family, and basically anyone who will find the same value in this episode that you did. And to get the latest from me, then let's definitely connect on social media. You can go to Facebook, facebook.com/Dude Agency, or Instagram @dudeagency.io, or you can check us out on YouTube on our YouTube channel. And then, of course, you can always visit our website at dudeagency.io, where you can see all of our other episodes of Operation Agency Freedom. You can also register for any live trainings that we have going on how to run a highly profitable agency. And of course, you can see how we help digital agencies with the people, the processes, and the education so that they can take on more projects and scale profitably. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.